If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we do have on our agenda public input 1. Do we have anyone for public input 1? If we don't, then let's start our goals setting workshop for the 2018-2019. At this point, everyone should have gotten a card, and that card should have divided them up equally with board members, administrators, and we do have community members here tonight, which makes me very happy. That matches you to a table. Mr. Fisher will be a little bit absent from his table because he's going to help me move me along. So we're going to go ahead to the next slide. And what I want to do is just soften us up a little bit to the reason we're here tonight and establish a tone for our meeting. And that is how do we celebrate leadership in Sag Harbor schools? We're going to watch a very short video. It's less than 4 minutes long. And it's, of course, what I love, which is TED Talks. We only have 2 tonight, and they're relatively brief. But as you're watching this, you have some Post-it notes in front of you. And if you want to grab those Post-it notes, and does everybody have pens? If not, I've got lots of them. Just raise your hand if you don't have a pen, and I'll send them around. Thanks. So you have in front of you, if you want, for those of you who are real visual learners, I have these at the table, and these are what we're doing. Please, if you would, just don't move ahead. And I know that we pick up the attributes of the population we work with, and sometimes if we're working with students or our teachers that just want to jump ahead, don't do that. Stay with me tonight. I ask, because we're going to make this a fairly short meeting tonight, because we already do know that we're initiative heavy in this district. We've got goals that we have done, we have goals that we're doing, and we do have a to-do list that's very heavy for the year to come. But I think the important thing tonight is for all of us to warm up to everything we have done, everything we're doing, and everything we intend to do in the year to come. I also want tonight for a takeaway for us to resonate on us looking at what are the best practices that have made us a really wonderful school district, and to resonate around what we continue to do to make us the very best school district. And one of the things I hope you take away from this is making sure we hear from all the voices, and we really develop the best possible relationships when we come together. When you're watching this, things I've asked you to do as you watch this, again, it's a very, very brief TED Talk, is what are some examples of everyday leadership at every level, Board of Education, administrators, teachers, staffs, and students. So the TED Talk is, I've given it away, it's about everyday leadership. Leadership doesn't happen from the superintendent and just the Board of Education. Leadership doesn't happen just with our PTSA president. She can't do it all by herself. None of us can do it all by ourselves. It is also our student leaders, but it is also the kindness that happens every day to make the school district work. And I think this gentleman that does this talk talks about everyday leadership. And I think, at least when I'm watching it, it reminds me so much of this school district and what makes this school district so special. So I'm hoping you'll feel the same way. And we won't talk about the deficits, what's missing at Sag Harbor, but we'll talk about Berkeley model of what makes a community work is we put our resources towards what's working in a community, towards what's working in a school district, towards what's working in a city, rather than throwing our resources towards what's not working. So I think this is a beautiful, when we're talking about leadership, we're talking about goal setting. So if you would maybe just write down some examples in Sag Harbor, and we can go around and see if maybe this resonates with you as well. So Scott, if you could get that started for me.
I want to start by asking everyone in the audience here a question. How many of you are completely comfortable with calling yourselves a leader? See, I've asked that question all the way across the country, and everywhere I ask it, no matter where, there's always a huge portion of the audience that won't put up their hand. And I've come to realize that we have made leadership into something bigger than us. We made it into something beyond us. We made it about changing the world. And we've taken this title of leader and we treat it as if it's something that one day we're going to deserve. But to give it to ourselves right now means a level of arrogance or cockiness that we're not comfortable with. And I worry sometimes that we spend so much time celebrating amazing things that hardly anybody can do, that we've convinced ourselves that those are the only things we're celebrating. And we start to devalue the things that we can do every day. And we start to take moments where we truly are a leader, and we don't let ourselves take credit for it, and we don't let ourselves feel good about it. And I've been lucky enough over the last 10 years to work with some amazing people who have helped me redefine leadership in a way that I think has made me happier. And with my short time today, I just want to share with you the one story that is probably most responsible for that redefinition. I went to a school on a little school called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. And on my last day there, a girl came up to me and she said, "I remember the first time that I met you." And then she told me a story that happened 4 years earlier. She said, "On my day before I started university, I was in a hotel room with my mom and my dad, and I was so scared and so convinced that I couldn't do this, that I wasn't ready for university, that I just burst into tears. And my mom and my dad were amazing. They were like, 'Look, we know you're scared, but let's just go tomorrow. Let's go to the first day. And if at any point you feel as if you can't do this, that's fine. Just tell us, we'll take you home. We love you no matter what.'" And she says, so I went the next day and I was standing in line getting ready for registration, and I looked around and I just knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew I had to quit. And she says, I made that decision, and as soon as I made it, there was this incredible feeling of peace that came over me. And I turned to my mom and my dad to tell them that we needed to go home. And just at that moment, you came out of the Student Union building wearing the stupidest hat I've ever seen in my life. It was awesome. And you had a big sign promoting Shine Around, which is Students Fighting Cystic Fibrosis, a charity I've worked with for years. And you had a bucket full of lollipops. And you were walking along and you were handing the lollipops out to people in line and talking about Shinorama. And all of a sudden, you got to me and you just stopped and you stared. It was creepy. This girl right here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then you looked at the guy next to me and you smiled and you reached in your bucket, you pulled out a lollipop and you held it out to him. And you said, "You need to give a lollipop to the beautiful woman standing next to you." And she said, "I have never seen anyone get more embarrassed faster in my life." He turned beet red. He wouldn't even look at me. He just kind of held the lollipop out like this. And I felt so bad for this dude that I took the lollipop. And as soon as I did, you got this incredibly severe look on your face, and you looked at my mom and my dad and you said, "Look at that. Look at that. First day away from home, and already she's taking candy from a stranger." And she said everybody lost it. 20 feet in every direction, everyone started to howl. And I know this is cheesy, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but in that moment when everyone was laughing, I knew that I shouldn't quit. I knew that I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew that I was home. And I haven't spoken to you once in the 4 years since that day, but I heard that you were leaving. And I had to come up and tell you that you've been an incredibly important person in my life, and I'm going to miss you. Good luck. And she walks away, and I'm flattened. And she gets about 6 feet away, she turns around and smiles and goes, "You should probably know this too. I'm still dating that guy 4 years later." A year and a half after I moved to Toronto, I got an invitation to their wedding. Here's the kicker, I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that moment, and I searched my memory banks because that is funny, and I should remember doing it, and I don't remember it. And that was such an eye-opening, transformative moment for me to think that maybe the biggest impact I'd ever had on anyone's life, a moment that had a woman walk up to a stranger 4 years later and say, "You've been an incredibly important person in my life," was a moment that I didn't even remember. How many of you guys have a lollipop moment, a moment where someone said something or did something that you feel fundamentally made your life better? All right. How many of you have told that person they did it? See, why not? We celebrate birthdays where all you have to do is not die for 365 days. And yet we let people who have made our lives better walk around without knowing it. And every single one of you has been the catalyst for a lollipop moment. You have made someone's life better by something that you said or that you did. And if you think you have it, think about all the hands that didn't go back up when I asked that question. You're just one of the people who hasn't been told. But it is so scary to think of ourselves as that powerful. It can be frightening to think that we can matter that much to other people. Because as long as we make leadership something bigger than us, as long as we keep leadership something beyond us, as long as we make it about changing the world, we give ourselves an excuse not to expect it every day from ourselves and from each other. Marianne Williamson said, "Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that frightens us." And my call to action today is that we need to get over that. We need to get over our fear of how extraordinarily powerful we can be in each other's lives. We need to get over it so we can move beyond it. And our little brothers and our little sisters, and one day our kids, or our kids right now, can watch us start to value the impact we can have on each other's lives more than money and power and titles and influence. We need to redefine leadership as being about lollipop moments. How many of them we create, how many of them we acknowledge, how many of them we pay forward, and how many of them we say thank you for. Because we've made leadership about changing the world, and there is no world. There's only 6 billion understandings of it. And if you change one person's understanding of it, one person's understanding of what they're capable of, one person's understanding of how much people care about them, one person's understanding of how powerful an agent for change they can be in this world, you've changed the whole thing. And if we can understand leadership like that, I think if we can redefine leadership like that, I think we can change everything. And it's a simple idea, but I don't think it's a small one. And I want to thank you all so much for letting me share it with you today.
Okay, so take just about 30 seconds and write where you might have had, where somebody said something to you, you said something to someone, or else you witnessed it in front of you. And then if you would share with the person sitting next to you, or a couple of people sitting next to you at your table. There's no cheating, Mark. Come on, Eric, start writing.
I'll start. So Willa, who's maybe 30, helped her big sister this morning. She's get better. And we're up with because
Yeah, there's gonna be another one.
it looks 3-year-old.
So if you had a moment for reflection, please start sharing out at your table. Okay? You have a table.
We should let Marcus speak for
I have one for my time.
It's like, I feel like I've had this conversation so many times where like, that didn't happen, none of this would have like all happened, and I don't know, none of it is in my mind right now. Like,
I'll throw one out there. But my oldest daughter did the semester abroad. They were only English in the city system in Barcelona. And none of them were very organized, so she stepped up and organized the weekends away from the countries. And so many friendships formed. And kids who had, that was the first country they'd ever been to, weren't confident about going out on their own, were kind of found freedom and love.
So I developed a quick relationship with him. So when I met Claudia after he passed away, he must have said something in Yiddish, something like,
when I got out of the Air Force,
I forget
I was in
exactly
civil
what it
engineering.
was. And it must have resonated with him.
Because
So
of
she wrote
government
a
contracts.
message.
We got a software about somebody else. So a government contractor person in a position I was overseas for 10 years, working as actually a facility manager on a military station. And then I left there and I came back to the city. And I got around to engineering to the school. And that whole experience catapulted my career in facilities. So if it wasn't for that one guy saying to me, hey, you think about doing facility management? I was like, no, I actually. And it just kind of like took that and that moment, that one person, that one, and my facility, it's still in touch with me today.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And he sent me an email, he's like, I have a job, I'm curious.
Really?
Where's that? Oh, and I just had my wife come back. I just had my wife to marry. And I read this email saying, we were planning more than this. So I went down ahead of her, and she ended up going
Yeah, where that never happened before,
kind of
right?
whole run down. 4 years.
Here, so isn't that in the Caribbean?
Yeah, next week.
That's what I thought. So you were living the tropical life.
You came back once?
They need technology help because
No, I think I told the story. It's like my wife's like, what? I was like, yes, Yeah, so we ended up having babies, and she's like, we need to go, I took it for the hospital, she's like, why are we here? She's like, well, this is where we have babies. She's like, not me, I gotta get close to my mother, this is my first one, you know, so sure enough, they moved back to the city. But, you know, that one person I still friends with.
I think my sister, she lived in Munich for a long time. She met her husband in Munich.
So I didn't say that
He's a German sister, and they moved. I'm driving. Yes, they divorced, and still very close. She moved back down here, now to
But,
I ran them
Instead of
like
just
5 months ago.
having like one person chat with Joey's.
Her and I had a conversation.
So one morning, they're standing on the
Just out of nowhere, I was like, I have to tell you, I'm so impressed with what you guys do.
with an attitude.
Bringing your girls back to the country, getting used to their single moms, and anyway, she wrote down her deals, and I needed that. I
they're driving her crazy.
They're driving her
Yes,
crazy.
that was a
And it's just kind of like,
Going that way, and it was like, it was
it
great.
was just like that message of, like the lollipop.
But Joey,
Driving, girls are doing awesome, they're
but it was
like
nice.
honor
I'm
students.
so proud of them.
So I think it's just capturing like that.
So I'm gonna put you on the clock for about another minute or so to finish up.
When you least expect it.
Hopefully there's some good
And that's
story
just funny
for
with the
you.
students. We had.
Yeah,
Is
that you too?
I'm gonna show you a very short video that can sum up my two in a very, very.
That's not what she
This is my guys.
This guy's
And I
nice.
won't mention her name, I said me.
And that's like those hidden.
Watch me, but she's going to.
You get to look like this every day. You gorgeous.
William Cullen.
I said, you're exactly perfect. How you are right now.
Everybody. I
But
said,
then
yes, it is.
because,
I said,
just to
because
make
it wasn't
America
fast,
laugh,
it was a
yes,
real
I'm
crosswalk,
really
had on
don't
my
want
CPS.
it was retake day. But right now, you're exactly perfect.
She wanted Mr. Ross in school, so she wanted.
Too early.
But I can imagine you
I think there was trouble with that student.
If I can bring it back together,
she was gorgeous. You wake up like that.
and I'm gonna
Stunning.
have to put you on the clock, I'm gonna go to 5, and 4,
She took the retake.
and 3, and 2,
She needs
and
a
1.
white shirt.
Do we have one good one from each table where we see the small bits of leadership?
The white one.
Can I start back here and?
Yours was life changing,
Your
so
table?
you're the one that.
Yeah, Barbara, yeah,
She did. She did have.
Everyone knows that I'm retiring, and people have been very kind in coming to say goodbye and giving me cards. And Claudia Ortman, who is a teaching assistant in the school, was seeing Larry Talmadge. Does anybody remember Larry? He was the teacher, president of the Teachers Association, right? And as a new teacher, Larry was just very, very sweet to me, and made me feel comfortable being a new person. And sadly, Larry was diabetic, and he passed away shortly after. One summer, I think he had an attack in the boat. He was fishing or something. And so I went to give my condolences to Claudia, and I must have said to her, it was like a Yiddish expression, and it was something about man plans and God laughs, something like that. And so when she gave me the card, this was just about a week or two ago, she wrote what I had said to her and how it resonated and made such a difference at that difficult time. I don't even remember saying it. And she wrote this whole long thing to me, so it was very sweet.
Yeah, you don't realize when
That's my lollipop
sometimes we're
moment.
there to lift people up. How about this table? Did anything resonate back here?
Well,
You need to tell a shorter version of it.
I will, it's gonna be much shorter.
Married
I-
15 years, the end.
So when I got out of the service, I was home and I was engaged. I got engaged to my wife, and I got an email from a friend of mine, and he offered me a position to move to and live on the island of Curacao. And I just got engaged a day, 2 days before, and I'm reading this email, and I had to ask Erin to come over, and she's reading it, and she's like, "If you don't do this, you're gonna regret it for the rest of your life." So we packed. So 3 weeks later, I packed my bags and I go to Curacao, and then my wife is finishing her grad program at Post. and then she ends up getting a job at the international school, and, you know, I don't know why we moved back. Actually, I do know why. We had decided to have children, and she didn't want to be close to her mother, but if it wasn't for my connection or my friend in the service who was working down there making the job offer, and then my wife being awesome and saying that, hey, if you don't take this, you're gonna regret it for the rest of your life, and I don't wanna be that reason, you know, it was pretty, it was a life-changing for me, you know, so.
It's interesting how it goes.
Yeah.
Oh, how about this table over here? I'm talking about you guys.
Oh, Steve Mike's.
Yeah, that was a good one.
What
Okay,
about the kids
so
go to?
this is not as life scope, but my wife had knee surgery this winter, and on Sunday we were in the ocean, and her knee felt unstable, and she was stressed out and upset about it. So when we got home and we're de-beaching, my daughter said to her, come here, let me tell you a secret. And then my wife kneeled down and she said, butt cheek. And made my wife laugh, and it brought a lot of levity to our evening. So it transformed an evening, not a lifetime. It was a small little bit of leadership from the young one.
That's great. How about over here?
Yeah, I talked about how, we all talked about how we live in such a great community in the sense that, and work in one that everybody knows everybody and every kid is touched by each person. And I gave the example of how I called her a crazy lunch lady because she's loud, but one of our cashiers will make sure and go around to each and every table to make sure every kid's eating, and if not, we'll make sure that they have food for the day. And that doesn't happen normally in any other district, I would say, so. It's those little things that happen all the time that our kids notice as well, so.
It's such an extraordinarily special district, and, you know, I think when sometimes you have to go away from home to come back and realize all this solved, you know. Sometimes we focus on, oh, we have to fix this, this, and this, but sometimes we forget that there's so much kindness, and there's so much really beauty in the walls here that, you know, I find it so extraordinary. So, Scott, can you move me again? I'm so sorry to do this.
No, it's okay.
We had a little glitch with our technology today, so.
On to the next slide, or?
Yep, next slide. So our agenda for tonight was warm up about our thoughts about leadership and teamwork and accomplishing our goals. Then we're going to roll up our sleeves and get to work. We're going to make this a very fast night, not only because we have work we've already done, but I think we also have a lot of tired folks here. And I know that once we go through the work, we're going to need some time for reflection for those introverts. And no, I'm not showing a TED Talk on introverts, but I'll email you one tonight. We're going to identify the progress towards the goals and their related tasks, identify and group those, and I'm going to need a little help on when we group those because we're going to make some post-it notes up. And then with the understanding that the district cannot do everything at once. Everything feels really important, but if you overload that cart too much, you don't move along. You have to do things in a prioritized way. So then we'll prioritize like we did last year with our little stickers, and we'll make those, and then we'll come back to it again when we're going to have a retreat on the 24th with the board, and then we'll have our board meetings in August that we can make those priorities. So Scott, if you can move me again, I'm sorry. So we're going to establish a tone for the meeting and our target of setting district goals, and this is the last TED Talk, but you have a little work to do during this TED Talk. So we're going to talk, how does this TED Talk play out in Sag Harbor's success? This is a woman that has studied institutional and educational success. And if you're a TED Talk person, you've seen her speak a few times. How could this TED Talk play out in our goal setting? And as you watch these videos, I'm going to ask you to do, for those of you who are educators in the room, you've all heard of what a word splash is. So on your tables, there's a word splash sheet. If you're one of those hesitant people, you don't have to put on the word splash. You have post-notes and you can write hesitantly and then add to the word splash after the video. All you're going to do is pull words that go, oh, I like that word. That word sounds like Sag Harbor. That word sounds like Sag Harbor in our goal setting. Don't worry. After we're done with this, we've only got 25 minutes of work after this. 25 minutes. How am I doing, Susan? Good. Thanks. So, and then I'm going to need a volunteer to help me write out the word splashes at each table for those who are a little reluctant. Okay, if you're real brave, you can just grab a marker and put words on. So a word splash is, we write the words and then we look for commonalities with the words. Okay, so we're gonna watch this last one. And this is, wait, so, okay, let me just do a check for understanding. Check for understanding. So, what a word splash is when students are watching something for big concept. What is the big concept in this video? Is we write down words that resonate. And it might be 3 words, 5 words, I wouldn't go more than 6 or 7 words. But I'm gonna hear a word and I'm gonna go, maybe it's leadership, but I think you're gonna hear things like relationships. I don't wanna give out all the, because it's not what I think, it's what you think. But as you hear a word that you sort of go, oh, that's what Sag Harbor's all about. Or, oh, I'd like to see more of that at Sag Harbor. So we have a lot of new board members, right? So getting to know each other might be really important this year, understanding each other. Learning about, we talked about policy, getting to know our policies. So things that resonate around our goals, continuity. So when she talks and you go, oh, I like that word, let's find out if we each like all the same words. Because we're all different people. So when we're watching this, we might find out that when Chris is listening to it, she's like, I don't like, these are the 5 words I really liked. Betty might go, these are the 5 words I really liked. You might find out you picked out the same 5 darn words. And then you're like, oh my gosh. But Matt might go, I gotta tell you, in the elementary, this word, when I'm watching this, that's the word that really got me. This is a very effective strategy in teaching for those of you who've used word splashes before, because it takes a big concept and it makes it smaller. And then we're gonna do it at each table and we're gonna see if we come up the same. And then, we've only got 25 minutes after that, Susan. How am I doing? Okay, thanks.
An evolutionary biologist at Purdue University named William Muir studied chickens. He was interested in productivity. I think it's something that concerns all of us. But it's easy to measure in chickens because you just count the eggs. He wanted to know what could make his chickens more productive, so he devised a beautiful experiment. Chickens live in groups, so first of all he selected just an average flock and he let it alone for 6 generations. But then he created a second group of the individually most productive chickens. You could call them super chickens. And he put them together in a super flock. And each generation he selected only the most productive for breeding. After 6 generations had passed, what did he find? Well, the first group, the average group, was doing just fine. They were all plump and fully feathered, and egg production had increased dramatically. What about the second group? Well, all but 3 were dead. They'd pecked the rest to death. The individually productive chickens had only achieved their success by suppressing the productivity of the rest. Now, as I've gone around the world talking about this and telling this story in all sorts of organizations and companies, people have seen the relevance almost instantly, and they come up and they say things to me like, that super flock, that's my company. Or, that's my country. Or, that's my life. All my life I've been told that the way we have to get ahead is to compete. Get into the right school, get into the right job, get to the top. And I've really never found it very inspiring. I've started and run businesses because invention is a joy, and because working alongside brilliant, creative people is its own reward. And I've never really felt very motivated by pecking orders or by super chickens or by superstars. But for the past 50 years, we've run most organizations and some societies along the super chicken model. We've thought that success is achieved by picking the superstars, the brightest men or occasionally women in the room, and giving them all the resources and all the power. And the result has been just the same as in William Muir's experiment: aggression, dysfunction, and waste. If the only way the most productive can be successful is by suppressing the productivity of the rest, then we badly need to find a better way to work and a richer way to live. So what is it that makes some groups obviously more successful and more productive than others? Well, that's the question a team at MIT took to research. They brought in hundreds of volunteers, they put them into groups, and they gave them very hard problems to solve. And what happened was exactly what you'd expect, that some groups were very much more successful than others. But what was really interesting was that the high-achieving groups were not those where they had one or two people with spectacularly high IQ, nor were the most successful groups the ones that had the highest aggregate IQ. Instead, they had three characteristics, the really successful teams. First of all, they showed high degrees of social sensitivity to each other. This is measured by something called the reading the mind in the eye test. It's broadly considered a test for empathy, and the groups that scored highly on this did better. Secondly, the successful groups gave roughly equal time to each other, so that no one voice dominated, but neither were there any passengers. And thirdly, the more successful groups had more women in them. Now, was this because women typically score more highly on the reading the mind in the eye test, so you're getting a doubling down on the empathy quotient? Or was it because they brought a more diverse perspective? We don't really know. But the striking thing about this experiment is that it showed what we know, which is some groups do better than others. But what's key to that is their social connectedness to each other. So how does this play out in the real world? Well, it means that what happens between people really counts. Because in groups that are highly attuned and sensitive to each other, ideas can flow and grow, people don't get stuck, they don't waste energy down dead ends. An example, Arup is one of the world's most successful engineering firms, and it was commissioned to build the equestrian center for the Beijing Olympics. Now, this building had to receive 2,500 really highly strung thoroughbred horses that were coming off long-haul flights, highly jet-lagged, not feeling their finest. And the problem the engineer confronted was, what quantity of waste to cater for? Now, you don't get taught this in engineering school, and it's not really the kind of thing you want to get wrong. So he could have spent months talking to vets, doing the research, tweaking the spreadsheet. Instead, he asked for help, and he found someone who had designed the Jockey Club in New York. The problem was solved in less than a day. Arup believes that the culture of helpfulness is central to their success. Now, helpfulness sounds really anemic, but it's absolutely core to successful teams, and it routinely outperforms individual intelligence. Helpfulness means I don't have to know everything. I just have to work among people who are good at getting and giving help. At SAP, they reckon that you can answer any question in 17 minutes. But there isn't a single high-tech company I've worked with that imagines for a moment that this is a technology issue. Because what drives helpfulness is people getting to know each other. Now that sounds so obvious, and we think it'll just happen normally, but it doesn't. When I was running my first software company, I realized that we were getting stuck. There was a lot of friction, but not much else. And I gradually realized that the brilliant, creative people that I'd hired didn't know each other. They were so focused on their own individual work, they didn't even know who they were sitting next to. And it was only when I insisted that we stop working and invest time in getting to know each other that we achieved real momentum. Now that was 20 years ago, and now I visit companies that have banned coffee cups at desks because they want people to hang out around the coffee machines and talk to each other. The Swedes even have a special term for this. They call it fika, which means more than a coffee break, it means collective restoration. At IDEX, a company up in Maine, they've created vegetable gardens on campus so that people from different parts of the business can work together and get to know the whole business that way. Have they all gone mad? Quite the opposite. They've figured out that when the going gets tough, and it always will get tough if you're doing breakthrough work that really matters, what people need is social support, and they need to know who to ask for help. Companies don't have ideas. Only people do. And what motivates people are the bonds and loyalty and trust they develop between each other. What matters is the mortar, not just the bricks. Now, when you put all of this together, what you get is something called social capital. Social capital is the reliance and interdependency that builds trust. The term comes from sociologists who were studying communities that prove particularly resilient in times of stress. Social capital is what gives companies momentum, and social capital is what makes companies robust. What does this mean in practical terms? It means that time is everything, because social capital compounds with time. So teams that work together longer get better, because it takes time to develop the trust you need for real candor and openness. And time is what builds value. When Alex Pentland suggested to one company that they synchronize coffee breaks so that people would have time to talk to each other, profits went up $15 million and employee satisfaction went up 10%. Not a bad return on social capital, which compounds even as you spend it. Now, this isn't about chumminess, and it's no charter for slackers, because people who work this way tend to be kind of scratchy, impatient, absolutely determined to think for themselves, because that's what their contribution is. Conflict is frequent because candor is safe. And that's how good ideas turn into great ideas. Because no idea is born fully formed. It emerges a little bit as a child is born, kind of messy and confused, but full of possibilities. And it's only through the generous contribution, faith, and challenge that they achieve their potential. And that's what social capital supports. Now, we aren't really used to talking about this, about talent, about creativity in this way. We're used to talking about stars. So I started to wonder, well, if we start working this way, does that mean no more stars? So I went and I sat in on the auditions at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. And what I saw there really surprised me, because the teachers weren't looking for individual pyrotechnics. They were looking for what happened between the students, because that's where the drama is. And when I talked to producers of hit albums, they said, oh sure, we have lots of superstars in music, it's just they don't last very long. It's the outstanding collaborators who enjoy the long careers, because bringing out the best in others is how they found the best in themselves. And when I went to visit companies that are renowned for their ingenuity and creativity, I couldn't even see any superstars, because everybody there really mattered. And when I reflected on my own career and the extraordinary people I've had the privilege to work with, I realized how much more we could give each other if we just stopped trying to be super chickens. Once you appreciate truly how social work is, a lot of things have to change. Management by talent contest has routinely pitted employees against each other. Now rivalry has to be replaced by social capital. For decades, we've tried to motivate people with money, even though we've got a vast amount of research that shows that money erodes social connectedness. Now we need to let people motivate each other. And for years, we've thought that leaders were heroic soldiers who were expected all by themselves to solve complex problems. Now we need to redefine leadership as an activity in which conditions are created, in which everyone can do their most courageous thinking together. We know that this works. When the Montreal Protocol called for the phasing out of Cfcs, the chlorofluorocarbons implicated in the hole in the ozone layer, the risks were immense. Cfcs were everywhere, and nobody knew if a substitute could be found. But one team that rose to the challenge adopted 3 key principles. The first was the head of engineering, Frank Maslin, said, there will be no stars in this team. We need everybody. Everybody has a valid perspective. Second, we work to one standard only, the best imaginable. And third, he told his boss, Jeff Tudhope, that he had to butt out because he knew how disruptive power can be. Now, this didn't mean Tudhope did nothing. He gave the team air cover and he listened to ensure that they honored their principles. And it worked. Ahead of all the other companies tackling this hard problem, this group cracked it first. And to date, the Montreal Protocol is the most successful international environmental agreement ever implemented. There was a lot at stake then, and there's a lot at stake now. And we won't solve our problems if we expect it to be solved by a few supermen or superwomen. Now we need everybody. And because it is only when we accept that everybody has value that we will liberate the energy and imagination and momentum we need to create the best beyond measure. Thank you.
So if you could take about 4 minutes and look at the team to create your word flash, and then we'll compare them very quickly, and then we'll get moving. I hope you like that. I know that.
I'm guessing that you have good penmanship.
I think we do have. So if one person could do the work on the.
I can do it.
Would you like to write? So any the words go anywhere?
I think so, yeah. And you can use any color.
And mix.
And mix color and bubble letters if you want, and little hearts around the eyes.
Anyone want to start?
Social connectedness.
Okay, the little one.
It's social capital.
I just realized this is now a spelling test.
Which is why I'm like,
So much pressure.
Doesn't matter what color I
let's spell check. She kept saying it.
Social capital.
I'll get rid of mine. So much pressure here.
Resources.
Sometimes you do need it. Because you don't want it to feel.
Who said we don't teach handwriting anymore?
Everybody has value.
I had
Not be afraid to.
resourcefulness.
Everybody has value. Yeah, because we don't, that's not the culture we live in the United States.
And super genius.
I don't have any of those.
I like to collaborate.
I had equality.
So you have more children in your future, and if that's what resonated with you. Reading is a word not mentioned in my house. Because I have teenage girls and I'm not going there anymore, so.
My thought behind that was being in an elementary school, super impressionable.
Time breeds.
Chickens.
Oh my God.
That was my thinking.
Trust in Canada.
Oh, that's good.
You know what phrase I found interesting, because it's so, it's not the way
I
that most
think
companies
diversity
tend to operate.
and everybody comes together.
Conflict is frequent because candor is safe.
Yeah, right.
Most organizations don't, I worked in Fortune 50 companies, and only one was that truly the case. And it was best of breed.
I had creativity.
I didn't catch the exact phrase. She said something about it's
Put it down.
the mortar that matters more than the brick.
Yeah, I think that was really a powerful phrase too.
It's not just a mortar, you know, it's not just a brick.
Right, with a mortar, just say the mortar was yeah.
People who have ideas, not companies.
Diverse perspective.
I didn't hear it either.
No, she didn't.
I just wonder how the individual kids.
I wrote down fika, I
What
never
you
heard
hear more about
empathy.
those companies.
Yep.
Oh, she said empathy.
When you hear more of those companies,
That's
like
FICA, right?
Facebook, and Google, and, you know, I knew somebody that worked for a travel company, it was
I had bonds.
Orbit?
Yeah, uh-huh. She used to be big.
In his office, there was like pool tables and,
Helpfulness.
well, in his floor,
Oh,
and
yeah,
pool
yeah.
tables and foosball and.
I used to work in the tech business, so there's a lot of that in the internet business. But some of those companies still do not operate this way. They have all those social stuff for the 20-somethings, but they still are very isolated. And then you have some more traditional companies that nail this. So it's interesting that the facade can look like you have that culture, but that's not always the case.
Reliance and interdependence builds trust.
Trust is not only just-
I think it's interesting
Did you get
that
that up piece from
different words.
People create ideas, not brick.
Brick and
So
mortar.
where was she from? She said she was a software company, right?
It sounds like she started a bunch of companies, a company in Harvard. That's where she's from.
I think she did a great job.
A lot more money doing what she's doing, but it's like, oh, it's
There's an article.
There's some really amazing ones. I've seen some great ones.
Did you see what I did yesterday on Google Hangouts? So, I can get the right back for some reason. But do people use that? No. I asked because, I use Google for work for my job. And so I just,
The Google Docs?
I shouldn't say
all
no.
of that,
There's
like,
certain people who like,
the whole
I
Google
would use
suite
it.
that we use for secondary school is called Google for Work.
Yeah. I've never worked for a company that did it.
And so, since I work remotely for my job, 75% of my company works remotely. So the way we have social interactions is by going on Google Hangouts and IMing and doing video
Okay, I'm
hangouts.
just gonna give you about another minute.
It's really, it's
1 minute.
I'm away, so
Because you never have to have hands-on technology, God knows. No one has to touch this stuff. You can all just do it. He'll be directing his teams and you'll have a little drone.
And we're gonna have our authors, those that,
While you're on building. Right?
if
You
you
can see that though, can't you?
we actually did
Or like
send
a
a
robot
robot.
dog.
I know, I'm gonna have to.
Here comes Scott, he's flying down the
Finish
hall.
with 5,
Actually did send a robot.
4,
I love it.
3,
My husband is the lead engineer for Major League Baseball.
and 1. Could you pick one person from each table to bring your word splash up to the windows and put them up on the windows so everybody can see them? And maybe you can do a highlight on your sheet.
Highlight on your sheet?
Yep.
I mean, is anyone, like, I can choose.
Perfect.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Anyone want to do that?
not really,
You know?
I'll hang it, sure, you can talk.
Yeah.
I think
So-
the person who hangs it's.
I second that motion.
That's why I think she was better.
Exactly how I heard her say that.
So Mark, did your table vote for somebody to do talking?
I think,
It's whoever
I
smells
think it was
dealt
Scott.
I think it's Mr. Fisher.
I think it was Scott because he's the one
You
standing
can do it
right
from your table. You don't have to stand up.
I can't see from the table, so that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. What do you want us to do?
It's just anything that resonated with your table?
The one line that everybody really liked, I think, that a few of us talked about was this conflict, frequently, conflict is frequent because candor is safe. But that stuck out because it's not the norm. That's not what you're usually seeing. Everybody has value, certainly. Some sensitivities came across. Cultural helpfulness, reliance, independence, builds trust and relevance. People create ideas, not companies. Social connectedness, momentum, social capital. Diverse perspective up top. Oh, and the mortar being more important than the bricks. And and greeting.
One person had greeting. The rest of us said no more kids.
Can this table add anything to that? You don't have to repeat it, but you're gonna add anything to that? Did you have any thoughts or anything that resonated?
What we didn't have, what's not on there that we also talked about was joy, the value of diverse perspectives.
Yeah, that's
And the bond between the students.
Yeah.
Or getting to see how those interactions work.
Right.
I said janitors too, the custodians, like when you get multiple perspectives, they sometimes know things that the kids know things. The kids can tell you in the backseat, if you're in the backseat of the car. Yeah. Can you add anything more from your list? We want to do a shout out to Emily's handwriting. Oh my God.
We still teach it, just kidding.
Anything more you can add from your list, which is?
I think all what we talked about mostly was just relationship characteristics were the key to success.
Yeah, building those. More additions? And coffee.
Coffee. Oh,
Guess whose word that was?
I can't see that. I mean, I think we all had basically the same words.
Did anybody see
You
a
guys
little?
had women. And
Oh,
that's-
yeah, that came from
And that came from Mike, yeah.
That came from
Thank you, Mike.
Not the women in the group.
Mike, you should share your perspective.
Did you have perspective?
No.
But you know, I have to, when I was watching this, I thought about the work that we've done over the last, this is my 5th year of goal setting. We developed a diversity and inclusion committee. We have, we, as leaders, we meet as a cabinet every week, and there's some real spirited moments we have as a cabinet. We do a lot of walking around and coming together just for things like this goal setting is unique for this district, where we brought in the whole community and invited them in. We don't have as many here tonight, but maybe it's because of, what did your group come up with? Maybe there isn't some razor edges. Maybe we've softened those edges for, Mash Park and for the village, because we've listened and reached out, So I don't have those, but I have a feeling that there's been a lot of hard work on the behalf of the board and behalf of, reaching out to liaisons for the community. That was my perspective as I was watching, and I was like, there's been a lot of relationship building that has gone on within the district, but also outside the district. And it's, the one that highlighted me was, Betty leads a diversity and inclusion group, but she reached out to so many different community groups and listened to so many different perspectives. That was hard, but, it lifts you up. So, okay, a little more work. For those of you who are sitting at the table and don't know the Sag Harbor Schools goals over the last few years, grab one of these. If you're a board member, you probably don't need it. I need one person at each table who's willing to do some labeling work for the group. Who's willing to kind of play leader as a group. Can I have somebody at each table play volunteer for that? Who kind of wants to play secretary? Barbara's nodding. So you need to take the master one. Everybody else can have the others.
Yep.
Somebody else at
it.
another table?
I can do it.
Okay, you're gonna take the master one, and you're gonna need these little 3 color tabs.
Okay, you got it.
Who wants to be at this table?
I'll do it.
Okay. So you get a master,
Beginnings of one, but it's on the
okay?
outside.
And somebody at this table?
And you're gonna need the little
These
labels.
labels,
Did you not go up to
January, you're gonna
invite
need
us
these
to
little
the
labels.
conference tonight? Or to the group that needs to know what you groups do?
You know, yesterday,
Just say that we're having a goal setting.
with the agenda saying, public meeting.
I think next year we could do a better job of emailing out and saying the public is welcome, would like to have because I don't think most people realize they could actually sit at the table and like be a part of it. You know what I mean? Last
I
year,
know there was a pitch board meeting.
I brought it up,
You did, right?
yeah, but I don't know how many people watched this video between last night and today.
So now we're gonna roll up our sleeves and do a little bit of work.
Just because last year was great.
And this should sound familiar from last year for those of you who were here, that we're gonna look at our goals for the last 3 years. I gave you the 4th year, but we do not have to do that. That's going back, for those of you who are brand new to this, I gave you 4 years ago just so you have it. But we're gonna work on the last 3 years. Is it done? Are we doing it? And to do. There's a couple of them in there that you can have a chuckle with because one of them's adopting a new website. So we adopted a new website and now we're adopting another new website. So how to make work for ourselves. So we're gonna brainstorm with your group any new goals or objectives that should go on the to-do list. I wanna give this a warning label. Any to-do lists, what do I have to do? So be careful what we wish for.
Is this color coded? Like,
Yeah, I'm gonna go, give me 1 second, I'm gonna show you. Discuss with your group what items are on your doing or to-do list, and then let me show you, January. This work is going to be on the clock, so you're only gonna have 5 minutes per sheet for each of the 3 years. So the dones, you're gonna label on each sheet, so there's 3 sheets you're gonna go through, as red, the doings as yellow, and the to-do is green. This work does not have to be perfect, so you're gonna go, oh my gosh, Katie, we have to go through all this? No, this is just to feel our way through fast. This isn't going deep and going, now we need to bring evidence back, and we have to go to Marcus and say, are we really done with Stella Maris? It's really just your gut feel. Because we're gonna come together as a group, it's your gut feel. You've got resources at the table. We can eventually go back to Marcus. How are we doing on Stella Maris? Doing. We can go back to, we have administrators room, we have lots of resources here. You have your superintendent, you have board members. This work does not have to be perfect. There will be time for reflection as we come together in August to finalize, but this gets us started. Now, why am I doing this activity? And I'm gonna go ahead and answer the question. The reason we're doing this is to familiarize our brand new members with what we've done in the past, and also for all of us to resonate, oh my gosh, we've been very initiative heavy, very initiative heavy. You're gonna be surprised how few reds we are gonna be putting on these sheets. Because once we start an initiative, it doesn't go away. So 5 years ago, career and college readiness and safety, those were two, and communication, career and college readiness, safety, and communication, those have not gone away. Those are still with us. Safety is probably back way up at the top of the rank, right? And all of the building projects. So you'll be surprised how many we're still doing, right? So here is what this looks like. If you look at the little tags that your leader's gonna have on their sheet, they're gonna have little red tags to put on each one of them. If it's done, it's accomplished, put a red tag on it. Your leaders all see, your leaders at your table see your little red tags? Yep. You're doing, that is the leadership still, the doing means leadership may still be needed. So for example, career and college readiness a long time ago, we're still doing it. But does it still need to be a goal? I'm gonna get it, no. If we're working on it and it's moving along, but if you're like, well, no, actually, it still needs to kind of be a to-do because there's a task we gotta kind of tweak, or it's maybe lost its way. No, Katie, then you've got one more job to do. You're gonna have to pick up a Post-it and write something. Okay, we're gonna have to pick up a Post-it if we get to green, and we gotta write, how do we have to fix that? And that's eventually gonna get to here, okay? I wanna do a check for understanding. Eric Bramoff.
Yes.
If you're going along and you're working with your leader January, and you get to something like Stella Maris, and we have to, for example, set up the daycare.
Check with Marcus, are we doing?
So you're gonna say to your group intuitively, what's your gut?
We're doing.
We're doing,
To-do.
or maybe it's still a
To-do.
to-do, okay? Whatever your gut feels like at your table, because I'm not giving you a whole lot of time.
My gut feels like we're doing.
Okay, your gut feels like it's doing. Okay. All right. I want check for understanding. Everybody know what their job is. Any questions? Raise your hand if you have a question. Susan doesn't have a question. She just wants to know. For those of us who are not in a hurry, because I'm putting you on the clock. How you doing? Yeah.
I'm doing fine, I just had a question about the master, so when you're
Yeah.
done. It's
It
just,
might be a question for
The
everybody.
master is not fully, you have to use
the
your
master
draft.
just has 1 year.
Yeah, it just has 15, 16, you have to use the
Oh,
other one.
I got the rest of them. Here.
No, you said we didn't have to go back that far.
No, we have to go back 3
Just to
years.
look.
I got the other years, sorry.
So you wanted to start in 15,
How is the master different than?
Yeah. Which one do you have in front of you?
I think everybody I have 15, 16. Chris, what does your table have?
She just took it away, so I don't know.
Okay.
We have 14, 15.
Yeah, I think you handed out each year.
And all this time you're on perfect, right?
kind of don't like Okay, so I'm not gonna wait, I just have 1 year for the master, so let's get that. Do you wanna go, do you wanna do the most recent year and go backwards, is that easier? Or do you wanna go, just because more of you are familiar with the more recent, so you probably can write more down.
Right, this is draft.
Thank you.
So,
Print it out so that one-
and then, let's see, so in terms of tasks,
All right. So use one from your table as a master. So I'm not
they're the
perfect.
same, the two masters are the same.
Don't
Okay.
use
The
the
master
master,
only
use
has
the
1 year in
draft.
it, so let's ignore it.
Okay, so you're starting with 2015, 16.
Okay, let's start with that.
That's the first one you're starting with. Okay.
I don't understand. So we're not doing 14, 15?
No, that's just for example.
Okay, so,
Here's where you're starting.
Launch new website.
in terms of overall goal, I would say we've done some of this, and in some of this, we're still failing miserably. Communication. One is yellow.
Are we supposed to know, is it tasks?
No, I think it's just looking at the general.
Yeah, but you have to look at the task, otherwise you won't know whether you've accomplished the goal.
Absolutely, but I think overall, we're not going, yes, this is done, this is doing, done, we're just saying.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
but the only reason I'm saying that is because then somebody's may carry over to this year as a task, right?
Sure.
So if you don't go to your task, we won't know what we're carrying over this year. Because I think if we haven't finished a task, and it's important, then that should get on this year, so we don't get
Remember,
too
you
long list
only
of new
have,
stuff. If we
you only have
can't,
like
if
5
we're struggling to
minutes.
finish stuff.
Doing, but I also wanted to read on it.
Right.
Other
Okay, so launch the website and enhance information links.
Yeah.
That's to do. We did it, but that's to do again.
One of
So
them
it's
is
both,
done.
right? They
Done
have
and
two.
That's how far back.
Continue to expand on the forums, communication, electronic newsletters.
The handbooks, the parent guides, are the handbooks totally done and current? That's doing, right? That's doing.
Develop a communication.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Doing means we're doing it now. To do means it's
But not limited to.
under an existing, oh, it's not a new task, it's just a develop communication protocol guide. That was never done. The protocol guide, that would have been suggested by the communication committee, got on a goal, and it was approved. So that's to do.
The green one.
Yeah.
I think we
information needs to go out, how it is
We
going.
won't have enough.
Then that'll
Provide time and learning opportunities for topics such as
I think that's how we're at.
Topics such as.
So you have that forum.
We used to have more, and we had that one forum, so I think we did it, but it's still.
Unless it's.
And you should have your stickers on, your red and green stickers on.
We have a doctor's office that's, where's that?
We're at 2 minutes, 3 minutes to go.
2 minutes to go for all year?
3 minutes to go.
No, we're,
Just 1 year, 1 year.
all this 1 year.
Yeah, all you're doing is taking and putting, did we do it?
We're gonna run out. Okay, all right, so we want all of them to be.
All you're doing is a red, red is done.
I'm labeling them.
Put it right at the end. There you go. Great.
Implement electronics.
I'm confused because red to me is the problem, so red being done, this is throwing me off. So done, and then implement electronic survey system for parents, community members, students, businesses, feedback.
Whereas number two, though.
Well, we did it, but what we were supposed to do with that was actually do regular surveys and a variety of things, which we haven't. So I would say you're doing.
But again,
So I'll put the stickers on afterwards, because we're not gonna have enough time. Promote the 10 positive principles.
Yellow here.
Use communication
Did we do
channels,
that?
email blast.
Did we really promote the 10 positive principles?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think we ever did it.
Connect student to school via club. That's what we did it, but you don't stop doing it, but I would say, okay. But I think we did a good job with that.
That's the thing, again.
Accountability, utilize data, professional development, student feedback, strength channels,
but in terms of
programming.
moving forward, if we.
Stewie.
Well, the thing is, once we've done it, even if it's ongoing, do we still put doing on it, or do we feel like we do? Okay.
Develop a 3 to
1
4
minute.
educational plan, just map it out.
That's done.
But still.
Always evolves.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but this kind of thing, that's just business as usual. That's not like, once you get that set up, that wouldn't be, you would put that on the list again, and someone's job.
Okay, we hit the 5-minute mark. How many teams are gonna need more time? Raise your hand.
We're gonna need like 2 more minutes.
Okay, well, let me put it on, I do wanna put you on the clock though, because we do have teams that have finished. We're just trying to get a gist for, what have we done? What are we still doing? And then what do we gotta like, we gotta throw more time into? It's really supposed to be just a fast practice here. I'll put you back on the clock for 2 more minutes.
2015, 2016 was a hopeful year.
Still an extra one.
This wasn't, I mean, this wasn't heavier than the other.
I just lost it.
We really cut back in the past 4 years. This is much lighter. Which was good. We got more focus.
This one is the thing. It's still doing it because we still have that.
Accountability and safe harbor.
Where does that stand?
Oh, no, goal 1, A's done, T's
Yellow?
done. We did some of this, but we did the implementation of the IB program.
You don't even have it. Let's cut it right.
Math analysis, we did a lot of this. Did we do a 4-year education plan? Did we do a 4-year education plan?
Are we doing the tests or?
You did yellow?
What do you say?
First one,
Every year you have to do that.
Right.
It's always ongoing.
But it got a task because it hadn't been done in a while, I think. And like the, obviously IB, assisted learning. Yeah, we haven't done what we're supposed to do. That was supposed to actually be taking curriculum classes that were not offered here. That's not been implemented yet. The technology was implemented, but the actual, that part was never implemented. We spent like $250,000 on it to do that, not to do like field trips and what types of. Oh, thank God, that's much better.
But even still, it's not for lack of trying. The problem we run into with that, just a quick aside, is scheduling.
So that's why I like the task.
Our fifth period is different than somebody else's fifth period, and we can't all align, otherwise our kids will be late from class in this period, or late from a class, and
So
it's
general,
just,
like.
so we're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, if you want it, you know,
And you know what, we probably should investigate whether we should implement it for that before we actually go.
right, but what it gets used a lot for, so this is field trip,
Yeah, it
is
should be.
very helpful, because we don't have the time to get our kids out.
We're so far from everywhere,
So,
no, I agree with that.
we've done it in both buildings, actually, we've been quite a bit,
Number one,
There's no more.
build, share, and measure the ability of each student.
Didn't we just have something?
Three, the first task was done.
I want to understand.
Although some of it doesn't count anymore, like the APR plan at the time, but that was done, absolutely.
right, timepiece was done, eight
Yeah,
levels moved,
so I think
so-
that's a good one, you did that, we switched it back by total cost of living. Standard work with us, so, yep, we did. Done.
That's done, we came up with the plan, it doesn't, the plan's done, just develop the plan.
We developed the plan, it's just okay, oversee all
It's
plans.
almost done.
And varnishes, yeah, but we're just talking about 15, 16.
So, if you missed it along the way, if there's things you think have to be done that are not on there, or a task that have to be done, please write a post-it note for to-dos.
Some of the early intervention we
So, somebody just said, what about boards getting to know each other,
the middle use.
board reflectiveness? Write that on a post-it note to add to our list.
Do you want a red tab?
Yes.
What other things do we want? I feel like I should be writing.
Emily, what do you want?
All right. Okay, you have to move on to another year now. We can't stay in this year. You have to move on to another year.
I'm gonna need more greens.
Okay.
It's done, right?
Build,
So it-
That bond.
We don't have a master, but we have this, which you have right there, underneath your thing, right?
14, 15.
Right, and then underneath it is 15, 16, 16, 17, but it's not the
now on
master.
So 16, 17?
So we're just, we don't have the master for those, we're just using this, right?
You should have a master.
I have a master for 15, 16, we did. Now we're doing 16, 17.
Yeah, that should be in everything you have.
Oh, the
right there.
master?
Yeah. So you don't have a master. You don't have a master. You can just pull his and use it.
Oh, no, we have the regular one. Okay, good. All right, then we're good.
Well, the policy's
All
done.
right, so we're now on, we're 16, 17?
build, share, and measure the ability
See
of
how all of
each
a sudden
student.
the last 2 years we got more.
Better visit.
Cheesy poops?
17.
We did 750. I got it. Come to my office and get one more.
I think like you said, let's try to focus.
Yes.
Build and strengthen.
So now this, I think,
Measurable.
Well, that was the big push. When I first got on the board, it was generic, and it was like, it can't be a goal if you don't know how you, if you've achieved it or not. It's happening, much better. Build it and community partnerships, I would say that's done and ongoing, but I think we can mark done if it was done once, and then it becomes institutionalized. Otherwise, everything's ongoing, because almost everything you think you're doing, right? So, way to go, by the way, Greg.
Which one do you want?
By the way, I start school at 8 AM, not done.
I would say A is done, because
Oh, we're,
with the wellness.
where's the tasks A and B?
Raise district-wide accountability, promote student achievement, decide how we work measure success. I don't think we did
I
that.
guess that's true. I guess it's a yellow.
Did we? We didn't come up with like a report card, here are the 3 things and how we're gonna measure success of students. So that was not done.
Even the way some
To
people
do.
are gonna count.
Implement IB middle years program.
It's a yellow.
I would, you know what I would put? I would put done on that, because we decided not to do it, but we made a decision,
Okay.
right? Is that fair? Because,
The issue is done.
right, the issue's done, right, we thought we were gonna do IB middle years, and now we're not.
What about
It's
like-
done with, it's done with, there you go, we needed a FedEx, then we need to put category. I get it. Although there is some implementation needed as we look to implement the practices of this program through 6 through 10, right? So is that still ongoing?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
6 through 10.
Right, so I feel like.
So that's a question. Provide professional development for Common Core learning standards?
I don't know if we
Is that done?
really
Common Core cycle sort of.
So let's just say, yeah, a lot of these changed. We'll put, implementation of bonds, Develop a plan for the athletic fields, done.
You know, you have like a
Secure
survey
bids
where
and move
you
forward on
ask
construction.
kid,
Doing.
right, like
Have we started construction yet?
So the.
We were supposed to start, we were supposed to break ground.
Another one is like,
We're still waiting for the windows.
Well, I think one of the.
Stella Maris, we have
Well,
some.
Stella Maris was supposed to start in June. We're supposed to start
We
construction
don't
in
have
June.
CD approval.
So we're really behind.
kind of like Harry
We are.
Potter, but
So that to me is like, has to be a major focus this year.
I think
And we sold it, but it was
So it's
opening
not
in
really
January.
We're waiting for reference, you know.
But we filed 3 months late,
Like STEM weeks.
before your time.
Sorry, I wish I could help.
No, we
My
filed,
hands are tied.
we missed our timeline this year, so now we're
They
gonna
filed
miss
in
opening in
February.
January. We're supposed to file in December, or the end of November. So we're 3 months late.
So still waiting on approval.
You know, only because when you got the last presentation on it,
I remember.
I went up to him, I said, did you see the presentation? I remember the last one we had, said we're breaking ground in June, and I said.
No, I know.
This was better by the board. That I was wrong, I was the case of the superintendent, and I didn't try and conflict with them, and then I brought, afterwards said, here's the last presentation. Here's what happened.
We're gonna change IB middle year. So we're gonna
Yeah, we
change
did make some headway.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
early intervention
Oh,
strategies.
yeah. No, once the approval happens, I think it's gonna accelerate.
Oh, it's,
But the community is counting on January. All right, so let's keep going. All right, determine the structural needs for the management program to be housed
do
in.
some control down.
Oh, there's gonna be a lot of damage. And the cost to do it, the additional costs added on are much higher than what we presented.
Because
Having not the structure, but the additional software.
three will be.
What's FSMS?
The best athletes.
Oh, former, the.
Any 90% carry over to next year.
Former Star Mass. Determine the structural needs of the different programs. That was done. Identify the structural needs of the different programs. To lead.
Facility Stella Maris.
That was done? Okay. Secure bids to me, not done. And this was not this past year's goals, but the year before's goals. Secure bids to move forward, not done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we,
I just think we do. Development of the
Man, we got a lot of.
That's not his, communications not his. Well, it's actually, we have 3 people we're paying for communication in the district to be there. The clerk is our communications coordinator, there's somebody in each building that's being paid to do his communication.
Oh, right, right, that was the thing we just missed.
Yeah, so I was.
And just a reminder, if you're finding things that have to be to do, gotta put it on a post-it note if it's not written out.
Right? This year?
Yeah, we're.
2017, we finished 2016, 17, right?
Okay, yeah, no, yeah, 2007,
I think task 1 was done. Establish a district-based diversity inclusive committee, done. Done very well.
Yeah, we had a lot of yellow in.
Promote district environmental wellness and institute of the transportation subcommittee.
That was done.
We have the subcommittee, I don't think we promoted district environmental wellness, have we?
Yeah, you should have some to do. I just think it's easy to create.
So I would say that part is to do the subcommittee, we have the subcommittee now, there's more work to be done by it?
Yes, because you
That's fair? Okay, because if we can't name on our hand what those initiatives are, then we're together. Continue emotional wellness programs for administration of building levels before. Do you feel like we nailed that?
So like number 4, which was the Stella Maris law from this past year, is essentially done.
Yeah, I agree.
Things that
sort of rank up the usual ongoing. Just so you know, some of a lot of the wellness pieces came up, we had, right, it was even before this one, we had a suicide 2 years ago, it was a high school student, and then we had someone who was a coach, substitute teacher, who went to
Okay, at this point, it should be
so it became a real focus.
on the last year.
Intervention program.
Two, I don't think we did we?
And if you could be using these tabs, they're very important for informing us.
Some of that other stuff, yeah. We need to, decide on how the middle years program is done.
Design for.
Thank you for using
Evaluate
the
student
tabs.
intervention programs and strategies.
Mike,
Have we finished?
Okay, that's me.
a volleyball tournament? But was there a lot of work done this year on that? No? Okay, so that's what you do. I'm sorry, I'm only turning to you because I don't know whether it's done or not. Yes. Yeah. So the assistant principal, you don't know if it's done. Provide professional development for next generation of students. Was that done? Yeah.
But that's because these are now programs to
That's done.
No, we're done. We're just doing the bottom.
At the end of the year, that's done. That was the last meeting of the year, I think. No.
E.
And then, F is doing, although I would say with E, student government council, the protocol was created at the end of last year, it hasn't been implemented yet. So when this says, practice to create a high government program, I would say that the protocol was created, right?
there's things that are trying to generalize what you guys are coming up with, and what we're trying to do is get a visual
Yep. I'm about to put all those stickers on.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have done to do, so.
Is anybody creating something, any post-it notes that really has, or seem to be coming up, see how it says post-it notes for to-do, like anything?
We have a lot of stuff we haven't done.
We're trying to move, like this is kind of like a fast.
You know, so we're saying, so those we get on this year's list.
Right, we're trying to move, like this is like a
Jersey.
fast.
We're almost done.
Okay, great.
We're on the last page.
Oh, beautiful.
Go away, we'll finish. All right. Just the implementation plan, yes, that was done, right? The plan. Secured bids to move forward on construction, to do. Oh,
We're in the process, we're doing it right now.
do it. Not the elementary school fields. That is done. Okay, good. That's exciting. Love that. Develop and communicate a plan for implement structural needs. Implement the structural needs, identify, that's to do, right? To do, you can identify the structural needs for potential revenue sources. That's ongoing, right?
Oh, for sure.
Secure bids, that's to do. Secure bids, implement, so this is to do. So overall, 4 would be to do, right? Are we supposed to have one sticker for each section, or do we have a couple, because some have done, some have not have parts of it? Do we know?
Well, I think that's in the closing action, right?
Like if you have 4 and you've done, I guess it's the majority. A poster for what to do? So maybe, all right, so successful implementation, so I do color, so if there's more than one thing we'll have to decide. So 2017-18, under first goal, we have done, to do, and ongoing. So, I'll put a red and a green, how does that sound? Unless we're supposed to do one color for each one. But I would think if the task isn't done, you can only carry it over. Right?
That's what we all do, we all do.
I can't put 4 stickers on each one.
Take it by.
There's a good one at the table.
We can just take the green and red markers.
Work on the screen, you guys are doing work. That maroon one, whatever.
I would go
And do you think there's anything you need to do that?
Okay, if you can start making up your Post-it notes of any, goals
What can make our
or tasks.
So I'm just circling the green, which is the to-do, is that okay?
Works for me.
So,
So, post-its for what?
To-do.
Yeah, that's the post-it, that's what we have to write the post-it.
But is it new goals or new tasks or new existing ones?
Yeah, you go over
Yeah, I think
There's a lot we've gotten done though, we feel good about that, right, So new. So Katie, if it's something that hasn't been done yet, but was a previous task, you don't want to add it to the script?
What you just said.
Right, but not of stuff that we haven't accomplished that we were supposed to, just all new stuff?
No, anything that we haven't accomplished on there, so,
Oh, okay,
yeah, let me go back.
okay, we got it, I think we got it. Alright. So on the post-it notes,
So any task that we haven't accomplished or a task that has you looked at, right? So, like, they have a goal that's basically what done there. But you've got the architect, you have the canal, and we have the bids,
right, you can still do it.
so the goal might be staying the same, but the tasks under the goal might be changing. And there might be something from the year before that you're like, okay, I think that one like off the left.
Oh, yeah, we got that, like the middle school IB, and you know,
So
several.
put those on Post-it notes, because we're gonna start sorting those along.
So everything that we have as a to-do, we now copy that onto here, and
On separate ones.
each one is separate.
I mean, I feel fine. Good. No, I just.
Similarities, right? And everybody's gonna have.
Because it doesn't seem like. So yes.
Brand new report, darn it, my total task, all.
Still maps be one, and then we would just list a couple of the tasks that still have to be done. Each task is in its separate. Okay. So Stella Maris is get.
I didn't get to that was on.
So Stella Maris is get bids, right? But that's out of our hands. There's nothing more we can do about that. So I think it makes sense to have tasks that we can actually. So let's get bids, right? Construction. So Stella Maris is get bids.
Oh, yes, we need to secure bids, we need to.
Construction. Communication.
I should write Stella.
Communications. They need pre-K vendor, right?
Pre-K.
And daycare. So, what?
We're actually in the process of doing that. Well, no, we don't. We just go with what
We haven't selected it yet. So pre-K and then daycare vendor, So I have get bids, construction, communication, pre-K, daycare vendor. Anything else? Any other stuff? Parking, we're gonna have a parking deal.
We're working on it too, so right there in the spot for the church.
So parking, because that's been hanging over our heads for a while.
Communication.
Yeah. There's a lot of little things, but,
That's not the only one.
okay.
You know what I
Do you want a magic marker? Are there any new goals or tasks that we're covered yet that are important? You should also include, if you came here with ideas of like, this is something I think I'm really gonna accomplish.
And if you have your Post-it notes done, please start putting them up.
So, is there anything?
Do you want, can you put your Post-it notes up?
Yeah, I did. I'm number 4.
On January, do you have Post-it notes to put up?
There's
And we try to create categories, so wellness, success,
work in general.
fun to, selling out. Do you want your new one? That's Diana's job.
Am I doing the wrong color?
That's thinking outside.
The reality, boards review different policies every year, but I think that there are some that are like, big ones that we have
No, they're good, but it's not a big one. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is not. I have a slide
before the school year starts.
limited options in this way.
Residency policy. Yeah, a friend of mine is now living in her house after 5 years. She wants to know if she's still, her cell phones are getting delivered to her house from a family that moved out. Because I think they're saying the kids I said, you talk to the central office and they talk to me about it.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
That's what I heard in the speech this weekend. Oh my God.
Oh, to my dad.
I'm on the first. Here's the general number. Yes, you set your clock by them. I reuse. What's your husband's name? You don't know whatever my kid's right now.
He's a doctor, so maybe.
What kind of doctor? But from 1965, set your watch for my dad getting me.
Red dye, whatever.
Every single day.
One of the things, what are you guys thinking about that you'd like to? Bilingual, increased bilingual communication, including, and then what would be report cards?
Summertime, we go by the sun.
I'm being more general because it's probably other things, right?
For work, the T's get shorter and they're supposed to
I used to.
You don't need to
Yeah.
put all the report cards in. So teach how to read it.
So you're saying that the report cards are
I know, Chris.
Okay, so I'm just put report cards as an example.
I think we're just waiting on this table, but we don't want to rush you.
What things are on your list?
I have a lot of stuff on my list.
I don't mean for you to do, I mean, it's just not on your list. I meant just like anything that, like one of my concerns is that we had a much lower percentage of kids going to four-year colleges here. To me, that's concerning. So just to really look at it, well, you know what we have to do? Hadn't done so maybe is tracking what happens after high school graduation. And really understand the success rate.
Right, so it's deciding success, that was part of it, was how do you measure success in high school and undergraduate. But you should write down
Yeah, where some are, but most not anymore. They can't afford to. 20 years ago, that was the case now, when your average house in Sag Harbor is $1.6 million. It is very difficult to afford that unless you have, you know, but there are people who work in their businesses.
Pulled out before they're even done, you know, to go to work with big companies.
Not many of our graduates. How many of our graduates have been?
I don't know, that's what I'm saying. The outcome survey or whatever it's called is definitely a good idea.
I mean, you know, my daughter's a computer science major, she needs 4 years. The companies aren't hiring with about a 4 year degree, at least then, unless you're maybe different. She's going to a computer science and engineering school.
I think she would know.
But she's working for a game company.
Yeah, you told me. How's it going?
Good, she works out of her pajamas in her bedroom. She's got 3 screens and she loves it.
Let me think, I'm gonna get back.
Loves it. All right, so communication. So that was relaunch website.
Relaunch website.
That would be great. The other detail, but improve communication. So relaunch website. Better relevancy.
Oh no, or it's macadamia.
Those are my favorite. Is it white chocolate? White chocolate macadamia?
I think it is.
Yeah, those are. You know, I have to take a high sugar content. That's why.
I need it.
But I need coffee because it needs to like cut.
I agree.
All right. The other thing is, my issue is this subject line is I click a tab and there's nothing here, and that's what I see for 6 months or a year.
You were sitting on the website.
Maybe, because if we survey the parents, I bet you have a very large percentage of social websites. I don't do that myself. I can't go on a website. It's just talking to read. I don't time for games, but I'm not pulling up the schedule. I can barely read it. So I hope that, you know, people have better timely content on the website, which is not
We're working on it, trust me.
Here's the thing, I want to hear my lollipop moment, because I finally found it. It's a really good story. So, was backpacking trips for freshman orientation. And so my junior year, I was leading this backpacking trip, and there were these 10 kids assigned to my group. One of them is this guy named David. And my boyfriend, my husband, was president of the on-campus Jewish alcoholic group. And David was like, oh, we're like, what do you do? What are you guys do when you get on campus? So I'm going to go to this. And maybe like sing one of the alcoholic groups. We had like 12. I was like, I haven't touched something from a Jewish alcoholic group. And that doesn't sound like it's going to like, it doesn't sound sexy, right? And he was like, but not.
All right, and we've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I just want to give a little warm feedback. Is I love the conversation. One of the things that I really love about our cabinet meetings can be very challenging. My husband cooks for us, so it helps a lot. But what I really like is about 5 minutes before cabinet starts, when I'm racing in with my agenda, is all the conversation that's usually about children. And that really makes me happy. And about Marcus worrying. Marcus is the greatest spreader in the world. He walks in, he's like, oh my God, da 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 da. And it's usually us going, Marcus, it's going so well. And he's like, really? That's so great to hear. So what I love is listening to all the conversations about, just hearing, I don't know what the hum's about, but I have a feeling it's about children, it's about education, and it's about reflection, and that makes me really happy. Because I think, you know, that TED Talk was very, very deep, but I think it was about connection and about empathy and equal time and helpfulness. This is an exit pass, and this is really a great thing to do with children and adults, but it can be used to leave a classroom when you're doing, again, a very big, heavy subject, and for students to very quietly go, I didn't get that, or I thought that was really important, or could we do more of that? So each one of you is going to get 12, if I can find them, I don't see them on this table. Thanks, Chris, can you just give me one? So everybody gets one of these.
These are round circles.
They're little circles, you're gonna get 12. And this is your exit pass. They're called power dots. And when you're working with students, this is a great thing. We had to do some goal setting when I worked for an occupational center, and we were working with probably 200 folks, and they were supposed to be setting a mission statement, right? And the goals underneath it. And one of our secretaries, who was just wonderful, she knew every child's name, she goes, I don't know, mission statement, I think it should be all about kids. And it happened to be really quiet, and there's like 300 people in the room, and everybody was given like 20 dots, and everybody went up. Her name was Christy Thornton, and she put it should be all about kids. The mission statement for our BOCES for that year is, it should be all about kids. And we're all just so delighted. But these dots are not like a vote. It's just to inform the Board of Education when they come back and reflect on these goals is, hey, I'm a quiet person, but before I leave tonight, and nobody's going to judge me, I'm going to tell you, this is really important to me. This is something, if I'm going to put my dot somewhere, I'm going to put them there. Now, I've asked Diana for a little help because she's tall. No, but she also does professional development in kind of helping us sort. But you know what I want to tell you is I'm really happy that we didn't look at a lot of like new heavy initiatives, because one of the things that, and I heard a few of you say it and I want to thank you, is pick up your books, those of you who are doing your work on your books. My people that were running the masters. So Chris, right, Matt, thank you. If you look at the books and if you can hold them up a little bit.
Well, we circled because we didn't have enough stickers.
You didn't have enough stickers? Oh.
Some of the colors we didn't have enough, so we started circling.
Okay, we did have more in the back. But if you look, there's not a lot of red, right? Did you see if there's, did you have much red? Matt, did you have very much red?
We had a lot
There's
of red.
some, you didn't have a lot of
We
red?
had a lot done in our month.
Yeah.
You had some?
A lot of yellow.
You had a lot of the yellow
Ongoing.
means we're ongoing with a lot of these things. Red, it's complete, it's done, somewhat, but the kind of it's still doing and it's still ongoing. Every year we bring in another initiative and we still have work to do. Or maybe we didn't do it quite to the standard we had hoped to. And we'd like to reflect and go back and do it a little bit better. So I did that as a visual means through the folks at the table as they're going through to not only number one, look at all the things we've been working on. And number two, physically put that down. And I was being a little rough on you and I was like, hey, would you use those little post-it notes?
Wasn't enough time.
But, well, I was forcing you, because some of us do really want to go dial deep. There are those of us that are very, if you do that personality, there's some of us that are very logic-minded and very thoughtful and want to go really deep on these. But I was kind of forcing you to move really fast through these, and not with a lot of data and not with a lot of information, but just moving through it a little more intuitively. And there's some of you that are really good at being intuitive and go, yeah, I think we've done that. Yeah, I think we've, because you can get into the weeds all night long. And there are times we're going to get into the weeds on these goals. And we have gotten into the weeds on goals. And we've given lengthy reports and lots of presentations. But tonight, I'm forcing you not to do that. I'm forcing you to move a little faster. But I bet you still came up with some good stuff for us to do. So this is going to be your exit pass to leave tonight. Now, I'm asked Diana to help us through what you put on your post-it notes and see if we need to synthesize those down a little bit. If not, and then then we're gonna have you do your exit passes. Again, these are not votes, these are just to inform the board. I will take these sheets like I did last year, and I'm gonna do a word splash on this, so we have an idea of what our wellness committee might be working on, and our wellness for the district, on what are some of these words that we heard over and over again. So a word splash is gonna say something like, when we hear empathy, if empathy's here, and it's on here, and it's on here, and it's on here, that word gets bigger, because it's more thoughtful. So can I hand it over to you, and you can?
Yeah, so I started looking at what we had put down as the tasks underneath, and I found it pretty interesting that they were all kind of checklisty, separate little things, and I didn't see a lot of super common threads. So I think that at this point I would invite us to just kind of come up and look at them and put our dots on, because there wasn't a ton of overlap, except maybe on Stella Maris. I think all of us kind of have the same vision of what it's gonna take to get that up and running and that sort of thing, so there might be a little bit of overlap on some of those Post-its, but for the most part, they were all pretty checklisty kind of things, so.
And we don't need to put dots on the words?
No.
One question, and I'll use an example. Betty raised something that she explained to the table.
Wait 1 second, you guys, before you get started.
It was new, but Betty raised something that was at the table that she explained, and we're like, oh, that would be important. But she won't have a chance to share it with everybody. So I just wonder if some of those that are other, like the stuff that we're already reflecting on that done, but the new stuff, does it help to hear from the people who put it up there so that people would understand what it is?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, let me just do
Because I would hate not to have a great idea,
Nope.
get a sticker, because it
Nope.
only had 4 words and we didn't
Nope.
know what it meant.
No, and, can the stickers lead the way, thoughts, comments, that touch me, and aha? Very quickly go around the table, so was there an aha around the stickers that you put up that we need to aha around, like, oh, aha, the reason that sticker's up there is, or
What I
Post-it note,
mentioned was the report cards and the drop-down menu being in both English and Spanish. Right now, there's a long list of English items, but for Spanish items, there's maybe 4 or 5.
So we talked
So
about
that
more
was the-
bilingual, just overall more.
Post-it, but it's not too clear because it's just a few words, like
Right.
drop-down menu, report card.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what that one is when you see it.
Yeah, so we continue that.
Yeah, just the bilingual piece, we
Right.
had a conversation about.
Anything else from this table on any of your Post-it notes that you wanna kind of resonate on?
One was just the communication, to continue to improve in communication protocols. There's a bunch of stuff that we hadn't done here yet that probably could benefit from focusing on.
Right. And I think we are launching a new website that's gonna be phone-based, and we have the communication coordinators at each of the buildings, which Victoria's leading the way on. I think that's gonna be a really big piece.
Is the website getting relaunched too?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it's gonna be phone-based.
No, but if someone wants to go on a computer, they'll be able to go on the website.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Scott, excited about that, aren't you?
That's a good word. Poor Scott.
Anything at this table?
Good.
No?
No, I think self-esteem.
How about back here?
I just threw in the board goals for internal operating procedures.
Yeah, okay, good. How about over here?
I think one of the things that was a little bit new was just with the wellness, feeling like we've been implementing, now it's time to monitor and report back and just kind of check in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think also we had on this side that we wanted to a little bit more focus on the emotional wellness aside from the nutrition.
Okay. How would everybody feel if I combine these, because they're an awful lot alike? And I can kind of match, if I can blend all these together? Do everybody feel good about that? Is that all right with everybody? Okay, is there any last comments? Because I'm good if, feedback from the group, when we come back together, I will synthesize this for everybody, and we'll be coming back on the 24th as a board, and I'll have the synthesis for you, and then we'll come together for our board meetings. And if you're good, this will be your exit pass. You do this and you can go home. Okay, we good?
Thank you.
Alright, so you should have these in your little thing.
You took ours.
Oh, I took yours.
So, Mrs. Graves, you're gonna collect these, right?
Yes, I'm collecting those. Yes. So if I could have those for you, that would be great.
You're putting the dots where you want them, or you want them to be like really more passive, put all the dots on there.
Sort of, go along with the other time, then it's something to really drag on.
Here you go.
Like many of organizations, we have all three of
Thanks,
those.
and I'm gonna take
We are using it, but not as extensively. The students and the staff use the G Suite stuff extensively. The board and the administrators, well, the administrators more.
Are we considering this
The
all?
board uses it, but probably could,
But only because, and I
right,
feel
and we
like,
could probably use to do some training with
right,
the
and
board
what
on
I'm,
how to use
you
it.
have
more
an
effectively.
We didn't put all the stickers on it, but go ahead, take whatever you want.
specifically.
And you have notes on something, I was like,
To do the word and not done, yeah, I wrote on what was done and not done. There was some other stuff that we, like measure student success we didn't do yet, you know, there's a bunch of stuff we didn't do yet.
I just, yeah, I do this.
What? No. I am a Luddite, other than because I have to use this.
Okay, but even still, that's how you get everybody to come along, right?
It's like
She's so good at that. She's taught me so much.
No, but she said she used it extensively in her work.
Oh, you do? Oh,
I can use the same.
It's all good.
I'll go back.
Way of doing it.
Always.
Getting cornered.
He has taught me so much. My children love so much.
What's measuring?
This is like all
One, two, like 5 more left.
That would help out Scott.
Maybe I could get a locker this week. I didn't get one last year.
I don't know how that was.
Oh, well, it's up there. I'd like a locker this year. I was told we didn't have enough lockers, so I couldn't have it. It was fair, I never changed it.
But your input works.
My input works, maybe I'll get a locker.
I'll double up.
Yeah, use all 12 of your dots. Use all 12 of your dots. That's the whole deal.
And then I didn't know what they were, I actually went off. Robert's rules.
I meant to. I don't have any more left. It's done.